This is the Between session one or part one. So this is a brand new group. I would like for us to go ahead and introduce ourselves real quickly. When I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you would like for us to know about you. I'll start. My name is Jason. I use he, him. I am the creator of The Between, and I have run The Between for all of these people before, and so I'm excited to do it again. Let's go over to Ben.
I'm Ben. I make character keepers, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the new stuff in the between. It's been a while since I played the London version.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. And Sarah.
Hello, I am Sarah. I use she, hers, but they is also fine. And I just am a dedicated fangirl of all things roleplay.
Thank you so much. And Brian.
I'm Brian. I use he or they, and I wrote Butter Princess, and Mike illustrated it and did all the layout.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Mike.
Hi, Mike and he, and yeah, I write and design little TTRPGs, mostly in the trophy space.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, if you are watching this video and you are watching it in order to see how the game is introduced and all the sort of cats and introductory material that we go through, we're not going to be doing that today. This group is very familiar with the Between, and so we're not going to cover that. If you would like to see how I introduce the game, you can certainly go find the playlist on my channel called Shadow Society, and then watch part one of Shadow Society, and I go through it in a very detailed way there. So for our purposes here, we're going to go straight to character creation. So we're going to pause for a moment to go create characters. Okay, so let's go ahead and introduce these characters. I will remind you all as players that you are not allowed to speak about your character's background, either in or out of character. All we know about them is what's written on the paper right now. And as we introduce these characters, everyone else pay close attention to what you're hearing from both me and from the player of that character, because eventually you're going to be asked to help populate a part of their character sheet called the personal quarters. This is something that they have in their room at Hargrave House, an object or a piece of equipment or something like that. And it's functionally your equipment list. Don't worry too much about like utility when it comes to stuff in the personal quarters. The most fun things are weird shit that like you don't know how you're supposed to use it until you do know how you're supposed to use it. That's when it's fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the table and introduce these characters. I am going to read the little descriptive bit at the top of the character sheet, and then you will introduce your character by name, look, and vice. And then everyone else will talk about what they think is in your personal quarters. So let's start with our explorer, the ostensible leader of Hargrave House. So Mike, have fun with that. Lady Florence Wilton Davies, you were born into a world of fantastic wealth and privilege. You could have spent your days cosseted by luxury, with nothing more pressing than deciding what to wear to that evening's dinner party. But you chose a different life. You chose to serve your queen. You leveraged your wealth and connections to explore the world, to chart unknown territory. And now you have a mountain range named after you, a fitting honor considering you tower over other Britons. Your strength, your intellect, your cunning, none can match it. None except the mastermind. The mastermind who plots ceaselessly against Her Majesty, whose mind and resources dwarf your own. You have conquered every trial the gods have placed before you, but the mastermind is something different altogether. And your new work, your work with Hargrave House, is connected to the mastermind in some way. You spend your days and nights exploring the true heart of darkness, the monsters that stalk the streets of London, but none are so monstrous as your opponent, the one who sits on the other side of the chessboard. Will Great Britain still be standing when the grand game is over? Lady Wilton Davies, tell us about your look and vice.
Yeah, so my look is have sort of a tweed waistcoat, classic like Hessian boots, and a monocle that is sort of like styled almost like a submarine portcullis that she wears quite a bit. And my vice are casinos. She's got a lot of money. She spends a lot of money.
Is it possibly an underwater mountain range named after you?
Wink, wink.
Wink,
Yes.
wink. I love it. Personal quarters. What do we think is found in Lady Wilton Davies' no doubt lavish quarters at Hargrave House?
Oh no, I didn't think about this.
Oh no, everyone else gets to decide for you.
Oh, good. I don't need to think about it.
So you in your personal quarters have a heavy metal chit that maybe is the size of a modern day coaster that has like a filigreed logo on it from a betting hall that we were never able, like we would never be privileged to see, but either you can make a bet or you owe a favor or something to do with that. Just a large metal chit.
I think you have a very fancy astrolabe that is powered and moves by ways that most modern scholars wouldn't understand.
You have a piece of unexploded ordnance in your quarters.
Just the thing you want your roommates to have.
It's active. It should have blew up, but it didn't.
Occasionally an ominous sound echoes from it. You also have a barnacle encrusted trident.
Fantastic. Let's go over to our next character, Victoria Belacqua. This is Sarah's character, the vessel. Victoria, for as long as you can remember, dark entities have been near. They lurk just inside your peripheral vision, just at the mirror's edge. When you close your eyes, you can actually feel them. Their cold breath, their oily touch, an occasional feverish embrace. They want to be inside you. They want to rub against your guts and deposit their power. Others are drawn to you as well, those who would use you to master these dark things in order to serve their own agenda. Some of these interlopers, these usurpers, can be of use, such as the hunters with whom you share a home. Others, like the coven, are best avoided. In either case, you are no one's object, tool, or weapon. You are no mere bystander. Your fate is yours to shape. Witchy Witch, tell us about your look, Vice, and yeah.
So Victoria is wearing a tailored men's suit in black and burgundy. Her eyes are mismatched colors, one a human hazel and the other so light it looks almost violet. And she wears, in addition to her eccentric men's clothing, a choker with an amber jewel at its center. And her vice is, I like sex with the dark entities that stalk me. It's great.
Fabulous. What do we suppose is in Victoria Belacqua's no doubt gothy quarters in Hargrave House?
There's a monogrammed lace handkerchief.
There's a flower crown, kind of like a May Day type of thing, and it blooms and dies with the seasons.
Love that. I'm going to say you have a black lacquered box inside of which something is beating.
I think you have a collection of perfumes from unknown origins.
Made from various ichors and ambergrisses, no doubt.
Definitely not potions.
Definitely not potions. Yeah, exactly. Very good. Thank you. Let's go to our legacy, Dominic Constantine, which is Ben's character. Dominic, Hargrave House is filled with monster hunters, but you're the only one who was born to do it. Your parents, and their parents before them have known one thing: reveling in the destruction of ungodly beasts and carnivorous terrors. Your family name has been whispered in secret meetings for generations, passed along to those in need of your hereditary talents. You were taught how to hold a blade when you were a child and completed your first hunt not many years thereafter. Your knowledge of combat and trapping is unparalleled, but you've grown disillusioned with your heritage. You want to be more than just another entry in a long ledger of death. You want out. But you have one last score to settle first, a curse of sorts, a beast that's haunted you and your family for as long as anyone can remember. Prepare to say your family's vow. And the first parts of that vow, all of the moves are the vow. A hunter's life is never over, is the first parts of it. And so, tell us about Look and Vice.
Well, Dominic is I think he's late 20s. He's still pretty young, but he's seen a lot, and that's given him a permanent 1,000-yard stare. He has vacant eyes, a sturdy handlebar mustache, and wears a deep brown duster with patches and tears. His vice is sex with strangers.
Very good. I feel like you and Victoria could like combine somehow. Yeah.
Very efficient, potentially.
Yeah, some efficient, sexy, vulnerable scenes. That's how we like them. Good. Fabulous. Thank you so much. What do we suppose can be found in Dominic's no doubt rustic quarters in Hargrave House?
There is a severed clawed hand that seems to move on its own. And you may like trap it in a box or do otherwise with it to contain it, but yeah.
There's a bear trap, but the teeth are a melange of things. Like there's some teeth that are pure silver, some are whalebone, some are wooden stakes. Sort of an all-purpose chomp the supernatural entities trap.
I have a similar idea. I think you have a roll of stakes. A wooden stake, of course, but also silver, gold, carnelian. I think you have like stakes in various minerals and metals for the killing of various types of creatures. So.
You have a set of dueling pistols, one of which fires back on the shooter, but you've forgotten which one.
That's amazing. Instant star.
I like how we have so many like objects. We don't really know why we have them here, but here they are. They could kill us. It's good. All right. I love it. Is that everybody on personal quarters? Yeah, great. Okay, then let's go to our last character, our new arrival at Hargrave House, compared to the others at least. The Martian Jacob Walsh, being played by Brian. Jacob, you are a Martian royal. The Venusians invaded your home planet when you were an infant, slaughtering your people and eradicating the ancient and proud Martian civilization. During the attack, your royal parents, with you bundled in their arms, fled to the Cinnabar Temple of Ur-Dur-Bar. There, the Cinnabar priests imprinted the 5 vaults of Tarthor, all the secret arts and priceless treasures of the Martian people, into your subconscious. You were then placed in a space capsule that piloted itself to Earth. But you aren't aware of any of that yet. A young couple in the English countryside found you, raised you, and saw to your education. Until recently, you had a respectable job as a solicitor. That changed when you discovered something strange about your body, something entirely unnatural. And at the urging of a friend, you sought shelter at Hargrave House. The people there agreed to help you figure out who or what you are, And in the meantime, you'll help them with the dark and dangerous work they do. So at the beginning, you have no concept of being a Martian, right? You are just a person with, what is your strange tell?
My strange tell is that my fingers split, and so I technically have 20 fingers rather than 10, and then they occasionally merge back together into a normal looking set of human hands.
Very good, very good. No doubt a sign of Martian pubescence, right? When your fingers like split apart. So we know now you're a man. Good. I love it. Okay, great. Tell us your look and vice as well.
All righty. I was thinking Jakob rather than Jacob, actually, if we can go with that.
Okay, very good. Yep.
So Jakob has silver-rimmed pince-nez glasses. One of those faces I'm picturing, just sort of, he's forgettable. Looks like everybody. And a walking stick with an unrecognizable animal on the top. His vice is letters from home, from the parents that adopted him.
Yeah, the Martian, all the Martians' vices cannot really be fairly even called vices. They're they're wholesome habits. And you also have a weakness. I think it might be fun to go ahead and share that as well. What is your weakness? You
Sure,
don't know why you're weak to it, but you are weak to it.
Right. Any form of alcohol except for gin.
Very good. Very good. Okay, good. So let's talk about what can be found in Jakob's no doubt tidy quarters in Hargrave House.
I've got one. You have a tiny engraved filigreed puzzle box that the pieces slide and interchange and move about that you've never been able to open.
I think you have a homemade crystal radio receiver that works when you're nearby, but has no power source.
You've got a little figure of Santa Claus whose eyes seem a bit too big and follow you around the room.
I'm going to say that you have a stack of you have a stack of penny dreadfuls. The sort of reading that your parents probably do not approve of, right?
That sounds terrific.
Okay, great. That's Hargrave House. Let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll come back and start our first phase. Okay, so just a quick reminder for everyone that since we didn't do cats, that we are going to have safety tools on the table as always. The first is going to be the X card, and you all know how to use it in this context. The second is going to be the open door policy. You can leave if you wish. And we're going to be doing moving or roaming lines and veils, meaning if we come across something or we anticipate coming across something in the story that we want to line out, we can do that. Or if we want to put it behind a veil, we can do that as well. I also want to tell you that even though this is a game set in a historical time period, we aren't going to dwell on historical accuracy. That much is obvious already. We'll do our best to represent the technology and culture of the era, but we're going to get some things wrong every now and then, and that's okay. I'd also like to point out that during this time period, people with marginalized identities would likely have been treated very poorly in society. We're going to generally ignore that part of history as well. In the world of the between, things like race, nationality, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, disability, and neurodivergence are not generally a social barrier. Are there any questions before we begin play? Very well. Hargrave House is an old Gothic revival style building. It stands out from its neighbors on Belgrave Square, which are done in the more conventional classical style. Hargrave House is also different because it's not just a residence, but a place of work, dark work. And some of that dark work has just landed on the doorstep. I'm going to introduce our first threat, and then I'll talk about the phases of play. Our first threat is the Nutcracker. Now, it is the Christmas season in London. A retired hunter, a former resident of Hargrave House, Rabbi Rebecca Solomon, has sent a letter to Hargrave House. She asks for your assistance in cracking a case that is very close to home, and indeed it's something you've heard about in the papers. The bodies of 3 dancers from the Royal Ballet have been discovered, encased in ice, and posed as sculptures throughout the city. Basil Lagarde, 13, posed skating at Regent's Lake Park. Massimo Ossani, 19, found praying at Solomon's own synagogue. And Hermes the Soaring Lambros, 29, crucified outside St. Paul's Church. Each body has been gelded. The ballet's winter season threatens to be canceled, and Rabbi Solomon, a patron of the ballet, wants the so-called sculptor, as the killer is being called, caught. She has determined that the killer works at the theater, but she is forbidden to speak to staff due to previous recreational trespasses at the Royal Ballet. This is a big story in London, and it would have been something for Scotland Yard to handle, but Rabbi Solomon has brought it to your door instead. You all know Rabbi Solomon. Well, maybe not Jakob, but everybody else knows Rabbi Solomon. She used to be in Hargrave House. Now she's a rabbi out in the city. This is a question for everyone. The ballet is well known for its secrecy. What wild rumors have you heard about its approach to discipline?
I heard recently that the dancers, instead of getting boxed across the ears, would be literally boxed and contained for sometimes hours for trivial mistakes in choreography.
There's a particular rehearsal room they call the den, and it's just the floor is covered in rats, and they have to dance with rats at their feet.
I've heard that the girls who struggle with remaining on point for long enough will have the shoes sutured to their feet until they get it correct.
Did you want one from Jakob also, or no?
Yeah, you might have heard something about London. Yeah, I mean, it's all paint the
right.
scenes kind of a character anyway.
I'd heard something similar, that on point was thumbtacks thrown into the shoes, but that couldn't possibly be true, could it?
Indeed. Now, there are 3 questions and opportunities here. The way this game works, I know you all know, but your characters are trying to answer questions about this threat, and the questions unlock opportunities. The opportunities are usually a chance to resolve the threat, to make safe London again, or to make London safe again. Sometimes there are other things, but in this case, there are 3 questions, and they're all just different ways of resolving the threat. The least complex ones are the most dangerous to resolve, so they sort of are inverted in that way. The first question is, where does the sculptor carve their works? It is a complexity 4, and it allows you to resolve the threat by laying a trap for the sculptor, then capturing or destroying them. And I'll clip these and put them in the chat until I get a chance to update the character keeper. That allows you to resolve the threat, by laying a trap. The next question is, what winter tradition does the sculptor still enjoy? It's a complexity 6. It allows you to resolve the threat by celebrating with the sculptor, luring them into the hands of the police. And the most complex question, and perhaps the most intriguing, how does the Royal Ballet train its featured dancers? Complexity 8, resolve the threat by empathizing with the sculptor and promising fresh materials. The threat is resolved, but the sculptor may be a future danger if the dance of the Nutcracker, which is a move, is ignored or left incomplete for too long. You unlock a move called Dance of the Nutcracker if you do this one, which is essentially you working with the sculptor to create art. So that is this particular threat, the contours of it anyway. It's very complex. We have an aspect of the Janus mask available as well called the Mask of Perfection. Each hunter narrates the last time they danced, what was perfect in these moments. And so I will update the threat sheet when we have time to do that. For now, we're going to go into our day phases, or our phases. The day phase is a pretty relaxed phase. We mostly just follow the characters around, investigating things as you wish. Once your characters start to collect conditions, you might want to start having scenes with other characters to get those conditions cleared. We have a kind of an abbreviated play period today, and so this day phase is going to be fairly short compared to what future day phases will be like. And this day phase is also going to be a lot of just table setting for Hargrave House, since this is our first session. So just be aware of that as well. As a general matter, I will always ask you, what do you want to do today? And let you go do what you wish to do vis-a-vis the investigation or clearing conditions, or maybe even answering your dawn questions, which you all have should have chosen. But we're going to start this one a little different. Victoria, it's late in the morning, around 10 a.m. And because you are sensitive, you know that you're about to have a visitor at Hargrave House. You can sense them coming, or at least sense their intention. What do you do?
Well, I suppose I'll finally have to get out of bed.
Indeed, indeed. And once you're roused and dressed and sufficiently caffeinated in whatever way you prefer, then what?
I think that I would make my way downstairs and perhaps whichever hunter I ran into in the hall first mention, oh, by the way, we have someone inbound. Doesn't seem spiritual. Probably be at the door in the next few minutes.
We'll say that's Dominic. Dominic, how do we find you in the morning?
I think Dominic is an early riser and has spent at least an hour training and working with his blades against a dummy, probably in the basement, I imagine. And he'll have washed up and be on his way back to his room when he encounters Victoria. And he'll just kind of look down at his blades in his hand and say, visitor or other?
Honestly, I can't tell. It's far too early for me. I don't do the calisthenics that you do so early in the morning, but I'm sure that it'll just be maybe just sheathe them for now.
You can
Slow
certainly
start then.
You can certainly read your tarot cards, Victoria.
Oh, that's an excellent idea. Thank you.
You have a move called A Thinning of the Veil, and you have tarot cards. You could certainly consult them to see the nature of the visit.
So I think, again, it's only my first cup of coffee, and I'm looking at Dominic, who smells like clean soap. And I realize that, oh, I can just give me a moment.
Clean soap and sweat, I imagine.
Rifling through the cards, almost second nature, as if they're an extension of her own fingers, plucks one and looks down to see the intention of this visitor.
Indeed. What's special about your tarot card deck?
I illustrated them myself meticulously and painstakingly over a number of years, adding little flourishes.
Very interesting indeed. So you have a move. When you consult them to glimpse the future, roll with sensitivity. Go ahead and do that. You're muted, Sarah.
An 8 plus whatever my sensitivity is. New character. Let's see here.
A 1. So
1, 9.
All right. Great. We'll come back to that in a moment. Jakob, something tells me you wake up much earlier than the rest of the house. What do you do in those quiet hours before the rest of the house, your new residence, is roused?
We've got a question that kind of ties into what my family, the adoptive family. Do I know what class they're from? Are they from? I'm a solicitor. Are they from a?
It's implied that
similar-
it's implied that they're like kind of middle class. Yeah,
middle class. All right. I'm not used to having servants, so I tend to get things done myself, do like sort of the household chores, but
no one has servants right now.
Right. Yeah.
You're all getting your own coffee.
Right. Yeah. But then I kind of go out and observe the passersby on the street, not knowing why. Like why am I fascinated by this person walking a dog? It's what I grew up with, but something seems different about London that doesn't match what I knew. So I'm out on the veranda, patio? What's the proper term?
I mean, this is an old Gothic style building, so it almost certainly has like sort of grand sweeping balconies on the upper floor, right? I mean, I have to
Perfect. I'll be on a
Yeah.
balcony sipping tea and I don't know, just taking it all in, I think.
Yeah, I love it. I will tell you that you're kind of looking out, and in Belgravia, this is the nicest neighborhood in the city. It is done up for Christmas. You will see, there is in the center of kind of the neighborhood, there is a large towering Christmas tree. This is one of Queen Victoria's affectations. Christmas trees didn't become a thing until she made them a thing, and now everyone who's anyone has to have a Christmas tree, right? And so Belgravia has a Christmas tree this year, grand, tall, spruce that has been tastefully decorated with various baubles. And even in this late morning, you can see a lot of people gathered around it in the snow. It's pleasant. It's nice. You see the visitor coming up the way. It is your neighbor. Hargrave House is on square, and there are other mansions on the other sides of the square. And your neighbor to the east of the square is Vice Admiral Thaddeus Flagg. He's making his way over with a young companion.
And how newly arrived am I? Like,
you probably have met Admiral Flagg once, but otherwise
Okay.
don't have much. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll cut on to the Vice Admiral. Lovely morning. Fog seems to have parted early. I'm sure that's great for the ships, right?
Admiral Flagg is an elderly man, but he's very tall and broad-shouldered and has a strong physique, even though his age shows mostly in his face. He has a famously kind of vacant, dead-eyed stare, like he's seen some shit, and his face is very lined and jowly. And he looks up at you, and there's a moment where he doesn't even seem to, it takes a moment to register. He looks up in your direction, but there's a couple of beats before his eyes actually settle on you. And he says, "Ah, young Mr. Walsh, I was just popping by to deliver a gift to Lady Florence. Is she in?"
Oh, at this hour, I think she may be awake. Certainly come down. I'll let you in, or I'll come down, let you in.
They're holding, the young man that's with them is holding a large wreath, Christmas wreath. Lady Florence, you couldn't help but overhear Thaddeus's croak down on the square. Even if you were in bed, I don't know where you were, but what do you do?
I think I was actually trying to head out. And so was all bundled up, and I'm just and sort of taking my overcoat off and just, yeah.
Indeed. Victoria, your move, A Thinning of the Veil. I don't know why I'm calling you by your first name, Ms. Balakwa. 7 to 9 on a hit. You may ask what is about to happen, and I will answer truthfully, but not necessarily completely. The answer is quite simple. You're going to have a visit from Vice Admiral Flagg. Vice Admiral Flagg always shows up in your cards. Well, it's a card that you've only ever pulled whenever Vice Admiral Flagg is involved in the reading. And it's a tarot card that doesn't exist in any other deck. You drew it extemporaneously. It is a chimera, a creature, part dragon, part goat, or part snake, part goat, part lion. He's coming to pay a visit and no doubt spread holiday cheer. Let's pick up with the two of you, you and Dominic, once you've deduced what's about to happen.
I look down at this card and I feel the familiar spectral fingers kind of dance across my flesh, give me a shiver. Neighbors, we should be fine. Admiral Flagg, I think he needs to be jolly. It's too early for jolly.
When is the appropriate time for jolly, Ms. Balakwa? That's what I thought. Shall we go say our hellos to the old man?
Indeed, Jakob is probably coming down the stairs at this point to get the door.
I'll be in the parlor.
Before the bell
Jakob,
can-
good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, and I'll innocently just fling the door open.
Good morning, Hargrave House. And Admiral Flagg steps in without being invited.
Please come in.
He's got a young man with him. Admiral Flagg still goes about in his Royal Navy uniform with his, kind of admiral hat. And he has a young officer with him who's holding this wreath. And he says, "In the little village that I was raised in, it was tradition for neighbors to bring gifts of a Yule wreath to hang upon the doors of their fellows. And I thought I would grace you with such a gift, being as how we are such good neighbors. Is Lady Florence in?"
I'm sure she is.
She was here just a moment ago.
This young officer, who is introduced as Lieutenant Anderson, hands you this wreath. and it's been decorated with like seashells and coral and dried starfish and things like that. Lady Florence, you can hear the commotion up in the foyer. What do you do?
Yeah. I think I'm like back in the parlor. Like I'm like making it look like I wasn't trying to head out or anything like that. Like I'm just kind of like relaxing. I've probably opened up a book and I just sort of like call out and I'm like, "Oh, Vice Admiral, is that you?"
Florence, please call me Thaddeus. We've known each other too long to go by titles, don't you think?
Oh, it hasn't been that long, has it?
It has been a number of years, Florence. How time escapes her, he says to the rest of you. And he marches over to the parlor and indeed shuts the door to the rest of you, leaving you with the young lieutenant and the wreath.
Dominic will kind of look a little bemused, more than put out at the door being closed, and then turn to Anderson and kind of give him elevator eyes and say, and have you worked with the old man long?
No, I haven't. I'm actually I've just received my first commission, truth be told, and well, my commanding officer thought it might be a good idea to come spend some time with Admiral Flagg. He is, of course, a legend of the Royal Navy, and I consider it a great honor to be able to not only spend time with him, but to live in his home. He has it's a very interesting coterie of former shipmates of his who stay over there at the Chimera. He's named his manor after his old ship. I don't know if you knew that or not. We thought that Lady Florence would appreciate a wreath decorated with a nautical motif. There's a little joke between them. I think he was very delighted by it. As you might imagine, Admiral Flagg is not the kind of man who finds small amusements to be that amusing, and it stands out. My goodness, what an interesting home you have here. What would you call this style? Sort of Bram Stoker. Have you read Dracula? It's fabulous.
I haven't had time yet.
Indeed. I didn't notice any footmen or maids. Do you all just sort of handle things on your own here?
That's actually what Jakob here is for, newly recruited.
Oh, and he's like, well, Jakob, if you want some help hanging the wreath, I'm certainly happy to lend a hand. And he just sort of stands there awkwardly, waiting to be dealt with.
Sure. We have a hammer here somewhere, perhaps. Do we have a hammer? Maybe this candlestick will suffice for putting a nail in a wall.
I admire the resourcefulness. Good luck.
Lieutenant Anderson says, it's Ms. Balakwa, yes?
So I guess a few moments later, after the door shuts, Miss Balakwa also opens the door and stumbles out again with a cup of coffee, having gone to the parlor and then been evicted again. Yeah. Yes. He's
like, well, I'm Lieutenant Anderson. I've been staying with Vice Admiral Flagg for the last few days now, and I was hoping I would get a chance to meet your acquaintance.
I see.
Do you have any Christmas traditions that you favor, Ms. Balakwa?
I find solitude, meditation, occasional roasting of spirits to be delightful this time of year. The veils are so thin as the winter approaches.
I fancy a roasting too, but of chestnuts this time of year.
I think Dominic will kind of swoop in front of Victoria and say, Lieutenant, why don't I show you around the place. You can tell me how Bram Stoker like it is.
He's like, oh yes, of course.
Victoria does like a quick squeeze of Dominic's shoulder as he wanders off in thanks.
He's still like looking at you as he's being led away, leaving you with Jakob and the wreath and a candlestick, apparently.
Jakob, I can brace it. Just come here. We'll
Where are you going to hang it? On the door or somewhere else in the hall?
The door made the most sense, I think.
Sure.
Indeed. Meanwhile, in the parlor, Lawrence. He sits down and helps himself to a cup of coffee. We haven't seen you down at the club recently. Have you grown tired of us?
Oh, it's just so cold. It, have to get so bundled up. Sometimes it's better just to stay in the comforts of home.
My goodness, that is not the woman I knew. The woman who so daringly, bravely explored the farthest reaches of the world for Queen and country, bundled up with hot cocoa and the fire. Doesn't sound like you, dear.
We've all earned what we can keep.
Yes, I suppose that's right. I certainly can't comment too much. Of course, I'm much older than you. I've earned my retirement, well, because of the temporal efforts I've put in, not just accomplishments. What do you make of this sculptor business in the papers? I saw Rabbi Solomon over here the other day.
It's very curious. Do you have any connection to the dancers themselves?
Oh, certainly. But that's for you to figure out at Hargrave House, not for me to just tell you.
Well, that's very coy of you, Vice Admiral.
That is, please, that is. Oh, this character, a sculptor, he's playing some sort of game. But I have a feeling he's a very simple creature. He's into his bizarre expressions, his strange titillations, innuendos, feelings of revenge, who knows what else. Now, the real game players, that's you and me, isn't it, Florence?
I suppose. Why do you say that, though?
Well, I've always considered you a worthy opponent when it comes to the circles that we run in, Florence. I've only ever wanted to be a match for your talents.
Indeed.
Well, if Hargrave House is to be aroused into looking into the sculptor matter, I would like to know how it goes. Perhaps you could keep me informed. The dancers, though, they are, well, I think if you have a look at what's left of them, you'll find that they are fantastic physical specimens.
I would hope so. I've heard that they go through quite a rigorous training.
Bit of hazing. That's all that is. We know what that's like, the shipboard life, don't we? I certainly do. The Chimera had some fantastic rituals related to crossing the equatorial line.
Oh, your habits on the Chimera were not my cup of tea, I'll tell you that much. But it seemed to work. It seemed to be effective for you.
I'm very good at keeping my men loyal, Florence. Ritual has a way of softening the heart and mind and will.
Well, I suppose I can have our new recruit. You may have seen him outside. Keep you up to date on anything that we do find.
Yes. young Mr. Walsh. I feel like there's more there, more to that story. How strange. A young country bumpkin solicitor just moves into Hargrave House. Are you going to play coy? Are you going to tell me what's going on there?
Oh, he has quite an interest in what we're doing here.
Does he?
I suppose I'm going to play coy with you, Thaddeus.
Yes, yes. Well. He gets up. Enjoy the wreath. I've
Oh.
included a little surprise in it. Let's see if you can find it.
Well, I appreciate the gift, Vice Admiral.
He goes out. Come along, Anderson. Let's cut in before that, though. Dominic, how's it going with Anderson?
Anderson showed interest in Florence, so he is definitely trying to seduce Anderson.
Or in Balacqua, actually. It was Victoria.
Sorry, that's right. Victoria, not Florence.
Oh, good. Let's have that scene then. So he's kind of looking around. He's like, of course, I don't mean it to be an insult when I say that this reminds me quite a lot of Mr. Stoker's work, and also the work of Ms. Shelley. It is just that, well, it sparks the imagination, he says, as he kind of like touches a gargoyle-shaped finial or something, right?
Dominic will stand close to him and also touch the same gargoyle and say, do you have an active imagination, Lieutenant?
Oh, well, where I'm allowed. Admiral Flagg says an active imagination is, well, maybe not the most conducive to shipboard discipline. The Navy life requires, well, it requires uniformity and conformity. But every now and then I like to peek around the corner, so to say.
Is that so? I imagine the shipboard life gets a little lonely too sometimes.
Oh, yes. Well, I suppose some of my fellow officers, of course, they have young women that they are courting, and they do find themselves missing them terribly. I myself, though, I have not been out to sea yet, so I couldn't say what it's going to be like for me, what I'm going to miss or not miss.
Perhaps we could give you something to miss, Lieutenant.
Oh, let's have the day move. What do you afraid is going to happen if your seductions fail here?
Embarrassment in front of the others.
Oh, that'll be fun. This is going to be with presence. I'll let you make a case for vitality, though.
I mean, he's just worked up a bit of a sweat. He's got that glow to him.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll let you choose in any case. Go ahead and roll.
It's a 7, so I will take vitality.
Very good. What does that bump you up to total?
10.
10. Okay. Oh, your vitality's 3. Okay, wow. You've got him. Well, let's read the move. It's been a minute since we've used these moves. On a 10 plus, you do what you intended or you hold steady. Describe what it looks like. How do you get him in your thrall?
Lots of direct eye contact, standing a little too close. Maybe a finger under the chin.
He says, my goodness, Mr. Constantine, you you certainly have a very direct way about you.
So I've been told.
But direct isn't bad necessarily.
Glad to hear you think so.
I hear.
I'll lean in for the kiss.
I think before you can make contact, that's when we hear, come along, Anderson. And Anderson will say, perhaps I could come visit you another time.
I think that's a good plan.
And he goes, and he practically, as he's leaving wherever you're at, he practically stumbles into you, Jakob. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Not a problem at all, Lieutenant. But definitely get out to see it sometime. It's quite gorgeous out there. The man of your station really needs to see it.
He's like, "Yes." And Admiral Flagg collects Anderson, says his goodbyes. Victoria, Anderson, perhaps noticeably, does not look at you on the way out. How does that make you feel?
I was going to say, as Anderson bumbled into Jakob, I was there helping hang the reef. I would perhaps catch him by the hand and say, "Beware of strangers, Lieutenant," in the most eerie way possible.
He's like, "Oh, yes, of course." And he kind of like pays you no mind. He's actually still kind of like looking back in the general direction of where Dominic was.
That is a relief for me. I do not care to know the neighbors that well.
Very good. And I think that will conclude our little Christmas fun day phase. So we're going to go straight into the dusk at this point, and presumably the investigation of the actual threat. Let's take a look at the phases. You can follow along on the phase tracker on the left-hand side of the character sheet. Dusk phase. We resolve any playbook moves or custom moves that are resolved during the dusk phase. The only thing we have is the Explorer's REC, but I don't know why you would use that at this point, so we'll skip ahead. And now we'll do a paint the scene question about Hargrave House. If you scroll down from there, we're going to take a look at the trophy room. I love the trophy room. The trophy room says, there were hunters living in Hargrave House before you. Rabbi Solomon was one, for example. Trophies from their encounters with the supernatural can be found in the trophy room. Please describe one.
I think that there is a plaque with a golem's head that Rabbi Solomon actually mounted herself, and it still moves and slowly expresses itself.
Sarah, did you say a clock with a golem's head?
A plaque.
Plaque with a golem's head.
I think there is a helmet with a just a blank mirrored front that doesn't reflect people in the room.
There's a lamp with a flame that's constantly burning. In fact, kind of like fills the entire like glass enclosure, and it's the gathered flame of some fire that was burning blocks and blocks of London at some point. It all got sucked into this lantern.
Nice. I like that.
Those kind of grotesque elephant legs turned into a umbrella stand. It's one of those, but whatever you put into it, you draw out something else. The thing you put in is just gone.
Nice. So now let's talk about the night phase. We're going to go around the table and find out what you're all interested in doing tonight. This is your first proper chance to get cracking on the Nutcracker. I'll give you some leads in case you want to follow up on any of them. Of course, you could go have a more formal investigatory meeting with Rabbi Solomon at her temple, or synagogue rather. There is the actual Covent Garden, which is the home of the Royal Ballet and Opera, which is the thing. There is St. Paul's, which is where one of the victims was found, as well as Regent's Park Lake, where another of the victims was found. There's also a ballet studio where the trainers are, or the dancers are trained. At night, there won't be anyone there, but that might be to your advantage. Those are all just some ideas for how you might begin the investigation. You might also consider taking a look at your dawn questions, and if you want to actively work on a dawn question, you can do that as well. So,
will you say the first one again? I got St. Paul's in the ballet studio, but I missed the first one.
oh, the just Covent Garden, where the Royal Ballet and Opera is held. So let's go around the table. Florence. Or Lady Wilton Davies.
Oh, thank you. I think I want to go to Covent Garden.
Sounds good. Dominic?
Will the bodies have already been
They
taken
will,
away to?
they will almost certainly be at a mortuary. So yeah, you can go look at those as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to check out.
I think
Victoria.
I think Victoria would want to go speak to Rabbi Rebecca Solomon.
Sounds good. And Jakob?
I am going to tag along to the garden. It's, the city's a little much for me, a little oppressive, and I have, might be wrong on what I suppose garden means in this case, but it sounds delightful. I'm going.
It's not a literal garden. It's theater.
Right. I will be disappointed when I get there, but I'm going there.
So, good. All right. I love it. And we would resolve Janus masks if we needed to, but we don't. So we'll go ahead and do the unseen. If you want to follow along, there's a tab on the character keeper called London at Night, the unseen. And our unseen for tonight, there's a temptation to do an evening promenade in Covent Garden, but I think that's maybe a little too on the nose, so we're going to do something different. Instead, let's start with Brown's Hotel. This is on line 21, the very left-hand side. Brown's Hotel. None of the 117 rooms at Brown's Hotel on Albemarle Street are the same, though they each have housed some of the most fashionable people you'll find in London or anywhere. A concierge, Teddy Miller, delights in spying on the hotel's posh clientele. The first prompt will be for Mike. The second prompt will be for Ben. The third prompt will be for Sarah. And the fourth prompt will be for Brian. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and we will begin the night phase. Before we begin this night phase, I do want to check in with Dominic briefly because Dominic has a move that we have to track periodically, which is called Is Never Over. And essentially what's happening here is Ben is keeping track of the hunt for the beast, which is this terrible monster that his family has been very focused on, his character's family. But whenever you resolve a threat with violence or are otherwise instructed to do so by something on the playbook or myself, you add a count to your hunt. Whenever you resolve a threat peacefully or otherwise instructed to do so by something on the playbook or the keeper, add one count to the hunt O's. Let me back up. If you use basically on the hunt, if you do something on the hunt that's violent, you mark an X, and if it's something peaceful, you mark an O. Now, this is when you resolve a threat or the playbook tells you, or if I tell you, and I'm telling you to go ahead and mark an X for how you handled Lieutenant Anderson. That felt like a very aggressive move. And so I'm giving you an X for that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Florence. That's for the chat. Good. So now let's do the night phase. Now, I'll remind you all that the purpose of the unseen is we're going to be narrating the scene that's taking place in another part of London. It has nothing to do with what your characters are doing. It's not connected at all. The purpose of it is to paint a picture, essentially, and to create some connections between the unseen and the hunter scenes. These connections can be visual or thematic. They can be motifs. They can be very literal. They can be more symbolic. They can be connected to ideas. It's pretty wide open. So your goal is to narrate towards that. Either you narrate your unseen in such a way that it connects up to something in the hunter scenes, or you narrate your hunter scene in a way that connects up to something in the unseens. And it can be anyone's unseen or anyone's hunter scene, right? As long as they make the connection. And doing that is called an echo in the night, and you get an experience for doing that. So let's go ahead and talk about Brown's Hotel.
Can you give me one reminder on the echo in the night? If I describe something in the unseen that echoes another player, do they get experience, or is it only things that?
You get experience for your creativity. So like if you do the thing that connects it, like if you do the thing that echoes, then you get the XP. If you narrate something and then they connect it, they get the XP, right?
Got it. Thanks.
It's just a reward for being creative in this way, essentially. Mike, our concierge Teddy, puts his ear up against the door of a wealthy young bachelor. What does he hear that makes him desperately want the life of this young bachelor?
So I think it's not what he hears, but what he doesn't hear. The hotel's pretty noisy. Like the walls are nice and that type of thing, but there's a lot of noise, and Teddy has not gotten much sleep at all in his own home, in his own apartment. And he hears nothing, like, and it's not even like it's silent within the room. It's that like he puts his ear up against the door and it's muffled as if he can't hear anything. And it sounds like whoever this bachelor is has padded this room in such a way that he will get a perfect silent night sleep. And yes, he just desperately wants a good night's sleep.
Intriguing. Victoria. Rabbi Solomon's synagogue, when you step inside, is always open. There's a platform where a Torah scroll would be read aloud. There's a lamp holding a flame that never dies. And there's wax dribbling down a grand menorah, indicating that it is the 6th night of Hanukkah. Let's paint the scene, everyone. Here in this synagogue, what demons are fought here? What shows these struggles?
Especially this time of year, there is a separate alcove of the synagogue set aside that always has hot soup, and they feed anyone who asks for it. And so in the slaying of the demon hunger that is wrought all across London, especially as it gets colder.
I think in a waste basket, you can just see the top of a booze bottle sticking out of the top on a small pile. And the rabbi has counseled many people struggling with addiction and other issues.
I think on that front, there's sort of like like a cauldron, but not in the witchy old sense. What am I trying to think of? Whatever, you can put it together. But it's fueled, it's kindled by playing cards and tarot cards, those types of things, and you can kind of see the ashes and the edges of those.
I've got a good idea here, but picturing like a little station almost of children's art, and the kids have been drawing out various versions of what they know of the holiday season, and some of them have heard of this Krampus character, and there's childlike drawings of what Krampus is, and their understanding of it, and equating it with more like a djinn, like a desert spirit, kind of like rising up out of the snowflakes rather than rising up out of the sand.
I love it. And Victoria will kind of wrap your scene with you entering and seeing all this, and you hear Rabbi Solomon saying, "Thank you for coming, Ms. Balakwa." And we'll go over to Dominic. Dominic, I think when you get to the mortuary, your timing is good because you actually see the body of one of the dancers being kind of put onto a cart where a grave digger is about to inter them or take them to be buried. But the grave digger, a woman, you can actually see that she's like leaning over the body in this like flatbed cart, and she's crying, and she's very carefully, almost worshipfully, like touching and caressing his arms, his chest, his legs, his battered dancer's feet. What do you do?
I think Dominic will approach slowly and just clear his throat to politely inform her that someone's here.
She turns around. She has dirty boots, but very white socks, actually, pigtails, and probably cheery dimples on happier days. And she's got a shovel that's like indicates her profession, kind of set next to the body, and a lit cigar as well. And she says, "Oh," she starts to wipe her eyes. "Excuse me, sir. Sorry. I'll just get back to my work here."
No rush on my account. Did you know him?
"Oh, yes. Yes, I do. I did. I did. Massimo. My Massimo. He was the prettiest lad I ever did see. He was a genius, you know. I saw him every Christmas season, jumping ever higher, up and up. He inspired me. He inspired me to do this business that I do now, digging folks up instead of putting them down. Well, sorry. I should be putting this one down, respectfully, and in full accordance with the law."
Of course, and I've no doubt you'll do just that. But before you do, maybe you and I can chat.
Good. We'll cut over to Lady Florence and Jacob. Covent Garden It is overwhelming in a sense. It's a temple to the muses. Orphans pray for salvation outside. Toothy icicles melt during the day, appearing to salivate. But at night, right now, they are crystalline and hard and sharp like teeth. This is probably the most complex paint the scene in all of the Between. So gird yourselves. I love it, but it's so complex. In 1728, John Rich raised capital to build the theater that you are now walking into, the two of you. He raised the capital through the success of his play, or of the play, The Beggar's Opera, which satirized Italian opera at the time. What subversive or satirical elements of opera do you see here that reflect this history? You absolutely cannot do this threat for a brand new group. It's a hard threat to do with a brand new group.
Each of the boxes on the top tier of the theater seem to have sculpted reliefs of opera tropes on each, like the prow of a ship almost. You have this busty, giant, horned woman who looks to be gesturing, as well as just a sallow-faced, angry-looking, haunted man, just another one, and each has just a really cartoonish visage on each box.
I think that the way that the theater is shaped, the acoustics are actually pretty twisted, and any of the high notes that the opera singers hit will bounce around awkwardly and pierce the ears of those in the most expensive seats.
I want to make sure I'm following the prompt. Was the prompt about the edifice, the building itself? Like, how is it?
It can be, yeah. Or it can be just like, maybe it could be decorative elements. Yeah.
All right. So exploiting kind of the latest understanding of optics and optical illusions as you exit and try to find the restrooms. The hallways seem to taper in impossible ways and flare out in impossible ways, like you're walking into something that's too small or far too large, and the distances are all wonky.
Man, whenever you order a drink, it's just served in broken glass.
Very good. I love it. The two of you have entered the theater. It's actually closed right now. The murders have caused both the ballet and the opera to have a break. So I think when you walk in, you actually see a young dancer using this time to practice like on stage. And so they do have a spotlight lit, and you can see him dancing by himself on the stage. He's fairly young. Most of the dancers are. The aforementioned Massimo was the oldest of the victims and probably the oldest dancer in the company. The rest are like in their teens. And you also see some stagehands and some other people kind of milling about. A lot of people, they probably just don't know what to do with themselves because the show has been kind of brought to this abrupt halt because of these murders. Lady Florence, what do you do?
I think, I mean, what I want to do here is like get a sense of like who these dancers were in like the social structure and try and maybe connect with similar dancers.
Intriguing. Yeah. So how would you go about that?
Can I interject a thing, Mike?
Mhm.
Do you have a box here?
You very well
Like a
may.
box seats?
Okay.
Like
Oh, I think there's a box that I have access to. As
would you
part of.
have like the classic opera glasses up there to spy these dancers from a distance and I don't know,
Oh,
check out
yeah.
their
I like
I
that.
like that idea to just
Yeah.
be like, yeah.
To check things out at a far. I like that. That sounds good. Jakob, what are you going to do?
Well, my thought as we arrive here is that, is it Lady Wilton Davies or Lady Florence? What's the appropriate way to address you?
You would say in conversation, you would say Lady Florence. You would just
Lady
call her
Florence.
Lady
All right.
Florence. Okay.
So, Lady Florence, does one ever get used to the London air? It's stifling to breathe here. Look at my kerchief. My mucus is already gray.
Oh, it is awful, isn't it? There's nothing like the fresh breezy air of the undersea when it comes down to it. And here in London, everything is so stifled, closed in, dank. The air always moist.
Is there respite in your seats? Like when you're higher up in an interior space, is the air more fresh there? Is that why they give you that view?
It's because many of the explorers like to climb the highest peaks, and so it reminds them of the vantage point of being at the top of the world. But really, if you want the best air, lad, you must go down. The deeper you go is where the good air falls. Think of how the
Completely
smokestacks
opposite of Victorian understanding
spew.
of miasma. Excellent.
Think of how the smokestacks spew their gray air or the gray smoke into the air, and it floats up. Truly, the birds are the ones who have it worst in this world. But think of the fish and how happy the fish plays, and yet how the pigeons that you see always seem so depressed.
Never mind the fish in the Thames at this time.
Right. Oh. With that, I'm just so curious about the plays. Can you get me backstage? Can I see the what happens behind the curtain? I've heard of.
Oh, yes, go ahead. I have no connections, but I am just like pretending like, yes, you must be bold. Just tell them you're with the organization and you'll be fine.
Yes, I'll go and drop the name of Lady Wilton Davies and see where that gets me.
Oh no,
Trying to
not
get backstage.
my name, young lad.
Well, I'm not telling you that. I'm gonna go
the
do that and see where it
organization.
gets me.
Okay.
Very good. Let's go back to Brown's Hotel. Ben, Teddy rummages through the personal effects of an actress staying at the hotel while she is out. What does he find that makes him desire her or desire to be her?
The actress, and this isn't known outside of the trade, but she is actually stretching her managerial wings a little, and she has begun producing. And in her luggage, he finds a folder of photographs of other actors and actresses for an upcoming production. And some of these photos are tasteful, but risque. And he longs to be able to be in the presence of bodies such as these.
Victoria, how was your relationship with Rebecca Solomon when she was a hunter at Hargrave House?
Well, my reply to her would have been, so it's Miss Balakwa tonight, is it? All business?
She says, well, I am a rabbi now, Victoria, and I do have to maintain a certain amount of, well, ecumenical propriety. Rabbi Solomon, who it sounds like you perhaps know very well indeed, she's been hunting demons since before she was a hunter at Hargrave House. Hunting demons is her specialty. She has a ring of power, famously, that she uses to ensnare and seal malevolent spirits away. It's her principal contribution to Hargrave House. In her retirement, though, she's a patron of the arts and holds a day job as a local rabbi. And she takes you back to her office, and she says, well, of course, I'm very thankful for you, for Hargrave House looking into this matter of the so-called sculptor. I can't... Well, truth be told, I have to somewhat admire what he did to those boys. That's the sort of thing I would only confess to you, of course. They looked exceptional. The one we found here praying in the synagogue, or at least positioned in a manner of prayer. Once you got past the layer of frost and rime, he looked so beautiful, so, well, like he was looking up into the eyes of God. Anyway, nevertheless, can't have people going around killing anyone in the city, much less talented young dancers, and I'm happy you're looking into it. How have you been?
Victoria will reach out and touch her hand across the desk and say,
Do you touch the
same.
hand with the ring or not, with the one without the ring?
I do touch the hand with the ring. Do I know better?
Make the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you don't keep it together? I think so. The reason why I'm provoking the night move is because it's a ring of power, and you are a creature of power, and it's a ring of demonic power.
And the darkness licks at the edges of my being.
They love it.
And
Yeah, they love
yes,
it. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, what are you afraid is going to happen if you don't keep it together here?
That I might have an episode here in her office and be unable to investigate at all.
It's worse than that. The demons will take, or the entities will take an opportunity, a rare opportunity, to lash out at Rabbi Solomon, who they consider a great enemy. Go ahead and roll with sensitivity.
All right. Ooh, I rolled an 11.
Nice.
Plus 1 is a 12.
Oh, you get a bonus as well. I'll give you a clue. We'll come back to this. I like this moment, though. I like where we're going to leave it right there. Dominic, you're with this grave digger who has inadvertently confessed to being a grave robber. And her name is Abigail Roche. And what did we leave you? I think was just introductions, or had you done something? Oh, you were going to ask her what
just
she's
intros.
seen. Yeah. So anyway, let's keep the scene going. What do you do?
So he'll approach to be able to look down at Massimo and just kind of say to her, one of the best ways to find something that hunts is to look at their prey. Do you see anything on Massimo that would indicate, might point to the person who did this to him?
Make the information move. Let's read it. It says, when you search for a clue, conduct research, or otherwise gather information, describe how you're doing so. I think you've done so adequately, and roll with, we'll say, presence.
4.
4. She turns to you. She has kind of a suddenly kind of wild look in her eye, and she says, I know what this is about. You think I'm going to take his body and I'm going to try to sell it like I sold the others. You think that the doctors at the academy, that they would love a body like this, a body that is perfect in every way.
Truthfully, I don't get a single goddamn what you do with the body.
You don't care.
I just want to know what kills him or what killed him.
Are you telling me that my Massimo isn't good enough for the academy?
Dominic will just kind of look down and just let out a low breath and say, yes.
You see her hand going for her shovel. It is laying next to the body. You can avoid this
You will-
encounter, of course, by marking the Janus mask, or you can keep going.
No, let's do this.
We'll come back to this. Let's go ahead and check in at Covent Garden. Lady Florence, you are, per Jacob's suggestion, taking a look through your opera glasses down. Well, you have a great view of the stage, of course, where there is a dancer dancing right now. I'll just give you an information move for generally looking around to see what you can see if you want to do that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of like peeking into the wings of
Yeah.
the stage and trying to see, like, are there particular people who are milling about, who are watching what's going on, the performance on the stage, and how are they interacting with each other?
Yeah, I
type
love
of
that.
thing.
That's great. Make the information move with reason.
Oh shoot, I should have grabbed dice.
Okay, we'll come back to you. While you go grab dice. Jakob. So you go to the back. And I think you actually see the first person you see back there is there is a woman who is she has a long table with a bunch of wigs on wig stands lined up there. This woman is she's older, she's Ethiopian, she has suede shoes with well-oiled leather heels, very tight gray curls, and she must be going blind because when she's examining the wigs, she has to like look really, really closely and kind of pop-eyed, kind of like staring them up and down. She's the first person you see. What do you do?
Ooh, I will be my charming self, which is a little more bumbling than charming, and do sort of the, well, hello, excuse me, I'm new here, but I'm so excited about your work, and are you the wig caretaker, and where do you get these pieces? And I just sort of bombard her with too many questions all at once.
She doesn't answer you. She doesn't look at you when she answers. She keeps doing her work. She says, "My name is Teresa Lovetress. I am a wig master here at Covent Garden." And she's sort of like looking deep into the hair and kind of fiddling with it and playing with it. She says, "Human hair tells a story, you know, how you care for yourself, how you expect to be seen, where you come from. And that's why my job is very, very important. It's my job to make sure that the performers' tresses are telling the story we want them to tell at the Royal Ballet, at the opera. Stories of love, stories of drama.
Hair
Heartbreak.
is so important." Oh, go on.
And she looks up and she says, "Who'd you say you were again?"
Oh, I'm Mr. Walsh, solicitor to Hargrave House and
Who?
Lady Wilton Davies.
She says, "A solicitor? What do we need a solicitor here for?"
Oh no, Lady Wilton Davies is one of the patrons of the organization and suggested that I might look around and back and see what I can learn.
Well, that's far above my pay grade, but feel free to have a look around. No one's going to stop you. No one really knows what's anything anymore. What with, well, I'm sure you've read the papers.
I'm just reaching for a wig to touch it without permission. Whenever she says read
slaps your
the
hand.
papers,
Just-
right? When she
yeah.
says read the papers, I stop, just in the nick of time, and say the papers.
The
It's
newspapers.
But it's tragic what's happened to the members of this performing group.
Yes, terribly so. It's horrible. Everyone's in quite a state about it.
Did you know Basil or Massimo or I can't read my handwriting. Ernest Lambros, whatever Lambros's
Ernest.
first name was.
Yeah, the soaring
Okay.
Lambros.
Yeah.
Make the information move with presence.
All right. It would have been a 12, but my presence is -1, so it's an 11.
All right, we'll hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Florence, go ahead and give us a die roll.
Yep. So it was 8.
Okay, fabulous.
And then I have a +2 on composure, so it becomes a 10.
Okay, great.
Right?
So, yep, I owe you all clues. We'll come back to those in a moment. Let's go back for now to Brown's Hotel. Sarah, Teddy draws a hot bath for a pair of good-looking young men staying in the same room. In what ways does Teddy help bring the erotic subtext of the scene to the fore?
Not wanting to overstep, Teddy wants to make sure that the lighting is right and the mood is perfect, lights far too many candles, but also makes sure that the hot water is perfumed with pine and jasmine to make this unctuous scent throughout the baths.
Victoria, go ahead and describe how you keep the spirits in check when you touch the ring.
I think internally, Victoria touches Rebecca's hand and then the ring, and it's a snap of almost electric but painful energy that snaps through her arm, and she can feel the spirits biting and pinching at her thighs and arms and the corners of her body. And in order to slake this darkness, she is turning all of this into just pure arousal. When she looks Rebecca in the eye again, she would see just that hunger, a dark and familiar hunger that she's seen before. I had forgotten. Forgive me.
You know better than to touch my ring.
Yes. You'll have to give me a moment to compose myself and find myself quite wanton.
Victoria Belacqua's wandering hands. Things don't change, do they?
They often get me into trouble, but you've enjoyed it more than once.
Perhaps. Do you hear that, Victoria? She turns her ear up. She says, I only just started hearing it when you touched my ring. And indeed, you do hear music coming from somewhere. It is the voice of a castrato singing Verdi's Cortigiani Fil Rasa Donata from Rigoletto. This is your clue. I will take a picture of it or a screenshot of
My
it.
Italian is
Yeah, so you can all enter it into the character keeper. That's your clue that you get for your bonus.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard that in such a long while.
She says, Of course, anyone else wouldn't give it much thought. But those of us who have lived in Hargrave House currently or before know that such things are not coincidence. It's connected to the sculptor in some way, I'm sure of it.
I believe you are correct.
We'll cut there. Dominic, Abigail Roche goes for a shovel and she is getting ready to cleave you with it. What do you do?
Going to pull out my twin blades and just say, wouldn't.
She lunges forward anyway. Let's do the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I am afraid that either I'm going to get shoveled or I'll kill her.
It is worse than that. She is going to cleave your skull with the shovel and then sell your exceptional body parts to the Academy. Let's have a roll with vitality, or you can back out and just walk away completely.
No, let's always up for a fight. 9.
She's going to get a good hit on you. That's going to rattle you a bit, but otherwise you will be able to dispense with her however you wish. Go ahead and describe it.
I think he's going to kind of her getting that hit on his shoulder and not his head was not him being sloppy. It was him trying to see if that would be enough for her. And when it isn't, he takes his blade and just cuts through the wood of the shovel's handle. So now she's holding 2 parts, and he'll just push her back so she topples over the body to the ground.
Nice. What kind of blow did she land on you?
She hit him on the shoulder
Okay, go ahead and
instead of the head.
take a bruised shoulder as a condition. Florence, your clue first. Roaming around the theater is an odd thing indeed. A white Arctic fox. Why would there be such a creature in London in the theater? But that's your clue. But you got a 7 and 9, which means there's a complication as well. Someone comes to collect the Arctic fox. And this is all happening kind of out of sight. No one can see this except you because of your vantage point. The person who comes to collect the Arctic fox, you only see them in profile at first. They're wearing a long black coat and a sort of kind of a simple, just kind of a bowler hat. But then they turn and they look up at you, and they have the most unusual look on their face. It's a man. His teeth are clenched and they're very big. So he just looks like all teeth. And he's kind of staring up at you. And you just hear him kind of, he's too far away. You can't talk to him or anything, but he just sort of like looks at you and he just kind of and takes the fox and goes away. And you take the condition marked by the sculptor. Let's go over to Jakob. I owe you a clue, right, Jakob?
Does an 11 merit a clue? I don't remember.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you get a clue on a 7 up. Yeah, 10 plus, you on a hit you find a clue. I'll tell you what it is, and there's no
Got it.
complication unless you get a 7 and 9.
All right. Well, 12 is the mastermind clue. That's what I'm remembering.
Right,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Lovetress, she will engage you in conversation about this matter since you seem harmless enough. And she says, well, it is, of course, all very shocking. It is not the kind of thing that, well, our patrons expect of the Royal Ballet and Opera. It has certainly got everyone shaken. But I have to tell you, there was a bit of a scandal. Actually, I don't know if it's connected, but, well, let's just say that some of the dancers were engaged in extracurricular activities. They had a bit of a side hustle. And she says, there's a place they all go. Some of them. 2 of them that died. The older ones. They were known to go to this place as well. And
What
there
place is
they,
that?
well, she looks at you and she says, you don't seem like the kind of person who would handle this news well.
I'm more robust than I seem.
Well, let's just say that there are private clubs where where young men who are beautiful, like the men of this company, can go to earn a little extra coin, if you get my drift.
I do indeed.
Do
What's
you
that?
get my drift?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. I probably don't, but I am insisting that I do. In the name of this club or the address.
She says, well, that's for you to figure out. I'm just talking about rumors. And then she's kind of leaves you to it.
All right. If there's a point in me pressing further into the backstage area, I certainly will.
Indeed. Let's go to our final stop at Brown's Hotel. Brian, Teddy returns to his tiny, dingy flat in East London. What do we see in Teddy's apartment that shows how he tries to incorporate bits of glamour into his dull, gray life?
Yeah. So mainly he dutifully takes things that have been left in the lost and found unclaimed for too long at the hotel and decorates his apartment with them. He could sell them and make some extra coin, but he prefers to hold on to these symbols or tools from a life that he doesn't have. So there's arrayed around his flat a pair of opera glasses, but if you look through them, the lens on one eyepiece is a little milky with mildew. There's a pearl handled, what do you call it? A hand mirror with a pearl handle and a matching hairbrush. There's a top hat that looks fine from the outside, but in the inside, you can see the headband is quite stained with salt from sweat. And he just gathers and collects these things to decorate rather than selling.
Let's just wrap our scenes real quickly, Victoria. How do you and Rabbi Solomon spend the remainder of the evening?
Victoria definitely wants to rekindle an old flame in this moment, if only to forget how very close she came to completely incinerating herself and her with some dark forces. So I think distracted by her smell of resin and night blooming flowers, Victoria will lean in and whisper, Rebecca, perhaps I can start investigating again tomorrow.
And she takes off her rabbi's, whatever mark of her office she wears around her neck, and sets it down and engages. Dominic.
Hand to the fireplace.
Indeed. Dominic, what do you do with Abigail Roche?
He's going to step around the cart that the body was on and hold out a hand to help her stand up.
She gets up and she says, all right, fine. Maybe I overreacted a bit.
Maybe we'll try again next time.
What do you want me to do with this body?
Whatever feels right. But if I come calling, asking questions, it's in your best interest to answer.
She nods. And Lady Florence, what do you do when you see this strange figure with his fox down in the eaves?
I think I'm puzzled. The music up here in the booth is quite shrill. I think that I grab some like wool or stuff my ears with it just to block out the noise of the music. And as I'm watching the dancers, they're not particularly inspired tonight either. So I close my eyes.
Oh, to be clear, there's no show going on tonight. It's
there's no show, but there's
a dancer,
right?
there's a dancer just practicing on the stage. Yeah.
Is there no music going on, or is
No.
there? Would there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I think like the rehearsal doesn't seem all that inspired tonight, either. And so I just kind of like close my eyes and decide to take a nap. But I see that smile, as I drift off.
Indeed. Indeed. Jakob, you head further back and you see just a scene of the company relaxing, both the stagehands, some of the dancers, some of the singers. You see stage decorations for an upcoming Christmas Eve performance of the Nutcracker Ballet. And let's just finish by painting the scene, everyone. How does the company, how are they like a family back here?
I think that there are signs that they all dress from the same wardrobe, but while their sizes may vary very little, that it is all a communal closet and everybody shares everybody else's scarves here, hats there.
I think that some of them are just kind of giving off these like signs of mourning that would be imperceptible to somebody outside of the group. And you'll just kind of you'll see the response to it. So you'll see someone come up and just put like a arm around a shoulder, and you can see the response of the person who is being approached is just like kind of like lets loose, or just sort of like shows that gratitude for that warmth and being able to pick up on that sign.
two of the dancers are sitting against the wall, resting a little bit, and one has fallen asleep on the other's shoulder, and there's just such an ease and comfort between all of them.
I had something similar, the idea of one sitting on a couch, another one sitting on the floor, and just sort of, arms draped akimbo. Kind of a sense of just ever-present physical contact with each other. And if it's all right, and from the shadows, Jakob kind of standing in the wardrobe, seeing all these articles of clothing kind of naively or innocently violating some social bounds by just touching things that aren't his, picks up a red velvet glove and sort of stretches it over a hand and flexes, and you can see the fingers stretching a little bit inside the velvet.
I love it. Let's go to the dawn phase. That concludes the night. We would collect rewards if a threat was resolved, but it was not. So let's answer dawn questions. We have not done the first two, so don't worry about those. But you might have gotten an echo in the night. Lady Florence, did you get an echo?
I was trying to sneak it in with the wool in the ears, but there's no sound, so I don't think so.
Oh no, I'll take it. I like it.
Take it? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting symbolically, right? It has an interesting like kind of silence idea. I'm totally into it. Balakwa?
I too was trying to slip it in. The rabbis smelt the same way as the bathwater.
Oh yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I like that. Dominic?
Yeah, the pictures of the still but beautiful forms echoing the body of Massimo.
Mm-hmm. And while I've got you, Dominic, mark an O on your hunt because of how you dealt with Abigail Roche. And Jakob, did you get an echo?
Yeah, I was aiming for the opera glasses, but
the
landed
opera
on the
glasses,
hairbrush.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah. Fabulous. Let's go to the individual ones now. Lady Florence, did you deliver a chilling, dead-eyed monologue about the horrors of the world? I don't think that happened. Unless I missed it.
My smokestack thing.
That was I don't think it quite I don't feel sold on it.
All right.
Did you leverage your social status to gain the upper hand? Yes, you did with the handling the theater. Victoria, did you make love to a human in order to forget the darkness? I would say so. Did you perform a ritual? That I'm less sure about.
Early on, I drew a card. I drew the Chimera card for my rites of salt and smoke. Is that considered a ritual in this
Well,
context,
that was for thinning.
no?
That was for thinning the veil.
Understood.
And yeah, I would say no.
Yep.
But you do get the other one though. Dominic, did you revel in the thrill of the hunt?
That was what he was going for with the lieutenant.
Oh yes, indeed.
Once he saw Victoria was into it, he was on the hunt.
Did you taste someone or something else's blood, sweat, or other bodily fluids?
The kiss got interrupted. So
the kiss did get interrupted. That's true. Yeah, fair enough. Jakob, did you demonstrate extreme naivete when faced with the horrors of London? I would say with the wig maker you did, because I don't think you understood what she was talking about.
True.
Did you go on and on about your bucolic life back home? I don't think that happened.
Didn't get a chance to.
Okay, so everybody got 2 XP. Good job on that. And let's keep going. You can mark new dawn questions if you wish. We don't have any playbook moves or Janus Mess to resolve, and so that concludes the session. We're about 5 minutes on our session time. If anybody has to go, please just go. But for now, we'll go ahead and do stars and wishes. Ben, do you have something?
I do. I have to go. But
Okay,
thank you very much. This was great. Good fun. All characters great.
Indeed.
Lots of stars.
All right. We'll see you later. Bye, Ben. Any other stars and wishes?
I think it's fun to get back into the between. I've been doing a lot of trophy gold, trophy world, that type of thing. So it's just nice it's such a dramatic shift in like that world and that tone and all of that. I think part of that is my wish is like it takes my brain a session or two to kind of like adjust and like catch up into the setting, and just like, especially with the between, because it's a newer game to me, like remembering what I can do and how to do it and all of that type of thing. So this was also a star for just like a really nice like intro session of like getting back into the groove of all of that.
I have stars. I also am excited to get back to the Between. I just adore this game, Jason. I do. I think that it'll be a lot of fun, kind of like half a wish to really play through a lot of these more thematically holiday. Between is going to be kind of just real fun, especially with my Bah Humbug mistress over here. So I just look forward to settling into the character a bit more, same as Mike. It's always a transition. That said, I liked how everybody just really started to vibe mid-session. Once we got halfway through the day phase, it just started to work. So yeah, just all kinds of fun. Excited to see it happen.
I already mentioned it, but the dueling pistols with one that aims backwards and you forget which is unbelievable. It's just like a device that's got so much potential. Can't wait to see what happens with it. Sarah, I loved your Rebecca, I can investigate tomorrow was like just a great line, really delicious. Yeah, and what Jason, you had talked about the grave digger, grave robber saying, I do know him, I did know him, I do know him, I did. Kind of that back and forth on tense was really profound. And I love Ben's idea of the deliberate adjustment of the acoustics based on the Beggar's Opera to ear pierce the upper tier. It's pretty darn sweet, really. In what do you say? In character with the overall idea, I think.
Yeah, stars for me. I had a really good time. I kind of wanted this to be just a sort of like getting to know these characters kind of session, and so the day phase was shorter just by necessity, but also it was fun just to kind of have this lighter sequence of scenes with the characters, right, where there's really nothing at stake, there's really nothing going on. We get to kind of see them being a little playful with each other, and kind of it was fun to watch you all settle into the characters, right? And that settling will keep happening, of course, but I thought everyone did a great job with it today. And yeah, and I like the I think this game is best when there's like a certain pace being maintained, and that pace is essentially kind of languorous in a way, right? Like, yes, we have this murderer, and yes, we need to sort out what's going on with it because that's our remit, and we've been asked to do so by our former colleague. But also, here's a cute sailor or cute officer in the Navy. Let's have some little like social dueling between our two upper crust folk. Let's have that fantastic little sort of reuniting scene between Rebecca and Victoria. I really loved that. That was really great. Yeah, so I like this. Like, yes, we have this job to do, but also we are broody characters who do whatever we want, and we we kind of do our thing. I really like how Brian's playing Jakob so far. I think you're kind of doing a good job with that sort of like naivete as compared to the other characters. I think that's really a key to that character, and so it's kind of fun to see that. And I particularly like how you did the glove thing at the end. I thought it was very fun. I enjoyed the scene between Admiral Flagg and Florence quite a bit. That's the sort of like explorer mastermind scene, right? There will be lots of scenes like that. Like, that is kind of their deal. In fact, you can clear conditions with Admiral Flagg, right, by having scenes with him, right? That's one of your main moves, and so that's kind of fun. And yeah, so and I also really, Ben's not here, but I'm enjoying seeing Ben play this like more like kind of aggressive like kind of character, right? Like it's fun to see. I think it's a slightly different character for Ben than what Ben normally plays, and so I'm really enjoying kind of seeing how that goes. And wishes, yeah, I'm just kind of excited to keep going with this kind of in the beginning at least, this holiday themed campaign. Obviously at some point that will fall away, but it's fun for now. And a star for this threat. I love this threat. This is by Ben Bisogno. It's such an intricate, interesting homoerotic threat, and I kind of love it. That's another star too. It was a really, really gay session, and that was really fun for me, so enjoyed that. Any other stars or wishes? In
don't
that
think
case,
so.
I have a very quick little scene. Caddy corner from Hargrave House, of course, is the mansion of Admiral Flagg. He cheekily refers to it as HMS Chimera, even though it's not a ship. The ground floor of Chimera is decorated to look like the interior of a ship. It has hammocks where people can sleep. It has artfully arranged cargo stores as furniture. The living room is like a captain's stateroom. It's very strange. But then you go downstairs. And downstairs in the basement, it's decorated to look like the day. It's decorated to look like the top deck of a ship. But the walls are painted with clouds and sunlight and blue sky. And there's a ship's wheel and all kinds of things and little half masts to make it look like the top of a ship. And we are looking now upon a scene of two lines of sailors, older men. Their sailing days are long behind them. They're soft, gray-headed. And crawling on hands and knees between them is young Lieutenant Anderson. He has been stripped, and his body is lacerated and bruised, and he has tears and mucus and snot spilling out of his face as he crawls between the line. He has been beaten and tortured to within an inch of his life. And the crew of Chimera sings their song in a low voice, no cheer whatsoever. Heave ho, stars below, Chimera finds the way. Night falls and so we go, stargazing in the bay. Stars above and stars below, three heads will call us home. A sweeter milk we'll never know, but in our dreams we'll roam. The last thing Lieutenant Anderson will ever lay eyes upon is someone at the head of the line. They are draped in lion skin, their face obscured with the head of a lion as a mask. They're wearing boots that make their feet look like goat hooves, and they have a giant snake wrapped around their body. Lieutenant Anderson screams, and it's the last we'll ever see or hear of him. I'll see you all next week.